Hello, guys. Welcome back to the shitcoin.com show. On this week's show, we are joined by possibly one of the most OG miners, I guess, in the space, Marshall Long. Welcome, Marshall.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
And I know you and Andreas actually met up, a few months ago now?
Yeah, I mean, we met at the non-conference called Satoshi Roundtable in Mexico. And yeah, I mean, I attended one of your open discussions where a lot of people asked you about the state of mining. And there were already some talks about the BTC halving that's coming up. But a lot of things have changed since then, and a lot of people's plans. So I guess the question is like, what have you been up to since then? And how's your plans changed?
Yeah, I guess this global pandemic's kind of wrecked everybody's plans. But that's the nice thing about Bitcoin. You can't really wreck Bitcoin's plans, I guess. That halving's going to come one way or another. That's for damn sure.
And while everybody's kind of locked up and the economy is not doing very well, the hash power of Bitcoin is at an all-time high, right?
That's right. Yeah, some speculation on that being people pulling off of Bitcoin Cash, but I can tell you that that might be partly true. But there's a lot of people spinning up new operations for sure.
That's interesting as well. So yeah, Bitcoin Cash is actually already halved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right.
How has that impacted the state of affairs in the mining world?
Yeah, so I can tell you right now, I only mine Bitcoin, but I used to mine whatever. It's interesting. I think you always see weird things around a halving for a popular coin. BCH is a popular coin, obviously. Most of the time for me, it goes against what my intuition tells me. So in the halving for Bitcoin in 2016, we saw the price run up a little bit, and then at the halving, the price went down. And I was like, how does that make any sense? And it was interesting too, because right before then, I had tons of people hitting me up trying to buy several of my operations. So I sold one of my data centers in Quebec at that time, all the gear. People were offering good deals and stuff for buying stuff. And so I told them, yeah, sure. And then the price went down, and that didn't make any sense to me. So, the same thing happened in 2012. So although I think the economies of scale were much different in 2012, I'm not sure that we can really compare apples to apples there. But as far as Bitcoin Cash goes, you saw some really weird stuff too that doesn't really make sense. So I think it's just because there's so many people who think they know what's going to happen, and there's just a lot of movement around the halving time. So as this Bitcoin halving comes very close, you're going to see, the price right now is a little bit depressed, but I'm building new data centers, and I know several other people are too. And even at this current price, I'll still be profitable after halving. So I expect to see the hash rate continue to climb unless the price sinks real hard. If the price goes back to like 4K or something like that, you probably see the hash rate drop off. After the halving, if the price stays around here, you'll see the hash rate drop off again, just because I want to say, 40, maybe 50% of miners aren't competitive at effectively today's price of $3,500 Bitcoin after the halving, right? So if it's $6,000 at the halving, most of those people aren't going to be competitive. So I expect to see a hash rate drop off for sure, unless the price runs up.
Become an early adopter. Siteship.ai.
And is that when the price is dropping, all of us people who understand nothing about mining, we keep talking to each other like, oh, I heard if it hits this number, then nobody's going to mine. And like for you, is there a secret number that you have in your mind so that if the price goes below, you just go like, fuck, I'm losing money every day now?
Yeah, and that number is different for everybody, everybody's operation. So, and it also has to do with business model. So the way some people mine is they'll mine and they'll sell coin at the end of the month to pay their power bill. Some people are allowed to forward pay their power bill. So that might not be as much of a factor as, so for my strategy, we try to take the pricing, the volatility out in a business model in a way where we want to try to pay our power on day one for however long the power company will let us. Of course, the power price is super important. And the number you're looking for is cost of production. Like, how much does it cost all in to make one Bitcoin? That's the number that if Bitcoin drops below that number for me, it becomes not profitable to mine. However, not profitable to mine depends on your business model, right? So if I've paid my power up for however long, let's say 2 years, then my only real OpEx there is employees and maybe some maintenance cost. Unless I'm going through an upgrade cycle, then I have more CapEx I would have to use to buy more gear. But from a day-to-day standpoint, if your power is taken care of, then it's not so much what is your cost of production. It's more so what's your overhead outside of power.
Yeah, because I was going to make an example with airlines, but that might not make sense. But I guess with an oil tanker,
Yeah.
you
Gold
could
mining
get
is a
into
good one too.
well, I don't know much about that either, but I was thinking because with airlines, we're seeing that they're just like dropping like flies today, and
Yeah.
maybe you paid a lot of money up front for things you're now not going to use, and
Yeah.
probably not insured against that.
That's right. Well, for them too, I think there's some kind of regulated entity that states that they have to fly certain legs. I know that's the case in Europe. I think they were able to get that relaxed, but for airlines, right, it's very similar to mining in the fact that your largest expenditure mostly is the jets, right? A jet can only do one thing. It can only fly. Bitcoin.
And must always, a 747 must always be in the air, right?
That's right. If it's on the ground, it's not making money. And that's actually why flight attendants don't get paid if the jet is at the jet bridge. So their clock starts basically as soon as they pull back from the gate. Or maybe even it's when they take off. So that's the other thing, right? A lot of power companies over the years have approached me and said, hey, can we do some kind of like special rate where you take your power at night and we'll give it to you at a great discount, and during the day you turn off? No, no miner will ever do that, because I want to run all the time forever. So it's very similar in that regard, right? So they know what they can make, and they know what each flight is supposed to make, and same for miners mostly.
If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter at shitcoin.com/newsletter.
At the shitcoin.com show, we love a bit of spice, and I saw that you threw down some spice on some claims about Blockstream's mining operation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't think that they've got a facility that big?
I would be willing to put money on it. So the number that they stated at the time that they tweeted was, we have 3 times the hash rate. I think they said around 3 times the hash rate of the entire Bitcoin Cash network.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I ran some back of the envelope math, and if they have decent mining gear, then really that means that they would have to have around 500 megawatts. And I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 people who have that. And I know those 3 or 4 people, and unless Blockstream is co-locating with one of those people, which is highly unlikely, I call bullshit. Gotcha. And I asked Adam privately, well, in a private group, to, let me know. I've got a lot of respect for Adam.
That's Dr. Beck.
Yeah, Dr. Beck. He and I have butted heads during the Bitcoin Classic days, but I got a lot of respect for him. Even at Satoshi Roundtable, we had a good chat on one of my discussions too. And but Adam didn't tweet that. somebody else that I'm unfamiliar with tweeted that, and I don't know if they're part of Blockstream or not, but I can tell you that I am fairly confident that they are not running 500 megawatts.
I was thinking about this. So mining computers. I think this is something that's very confusing to us outside of the mining space, because every single day Bitmain is apparently, I would say, close to bankrupt, according to the news sources a lot of people read, which will be, Reddit Bitcoin and a bunch on Twitter, CoinDesk, everything, but it never seems to happen. And when you ask people where the gear is from, it seems to be from Bitmain. So can you explain that?
So Bitmain is a Chinese entity, and the way Chinese companies run is not always logical, I'll say. A lot of companies that I have either worked for or been a part of, sometimes the backers have so much money that they're just willing to kind of let it ride until they can get a better, outlook. And that's not necessarily the case for Bitmain. I can say that there's two things at play. The secondary market right now is flooded with almost exclusively Bitmain gear. So because somebody has Bitmain gear, that doesn't mean they bought it from Bitmain. That's the first thing. Second thing is there's a lot of R&D costs that Bitmain has to forbear, and to be able to recoup that, you're kind of a victim to the cycle, right? So if price is high, you'll be able to recoup it quickly, because the R&D they're doing now is for the Samsung 5 nanometer stuff. I mean, that's Intel's not doing that, AMD's not doing that, Apple's not doing that. Samsung 5 nanometer basically means that the gate on the chip is 3 electrons wide. So that means the yield on those chips is really bad, because there's not a good way to design a chip around that, just because the tolerance for failure is literally 1 electron wide. It's very small.
I remember this from some kind of physics class, that if you make wires, or lanes in this case, and they're very, very small, because of
quantum tunneling
physics
is an issue. Yeah.
Your electron will literally jump from one wire to the other.
That's right.
And 1 + 1 is now 3.
That's right. So there's all kinds of issues that they have to spend money on in order to learn, in order to stay competitive. And that's something that most people don't take into account. So I can tell you that Bitmain's still making miners, still selling them. Their sales team's big, but I know that the current pandemic has affected them, just like every other company. So do I think that they're in any kind of risk of going under? I would be very surprised if they went under in the next 18 months. But there's also other competitors too, right? Like WhatsMiner, MicroBT, they're very competitive now, but they're more focused on global sales. For instance, the new S19 you could only get from Bitmain if you were a Chinese citizen. You had to provide proof of residency and all this stuff. Those went on sale, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago for China mainland only. And
they were quickly sent to Hong Kong for some reason.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. But their sales cycle for the States starts in June. However, WhatsMiner, on the other hand, they have a fully deployed sales team, I think in Louisiana or somewhere. And they're focused on their new units selling everywhere. So, I mean, it's just a business model difference. And Bitmain also does a lot of their own mining, which people don't take into account, with their own gear that if they can't sell it, they'll just run it. And that's the case for a lot of the manufacturers. Cheetah Miner is a good example of that. That's not a household name in the States yet, but I'm not sure if WhatsMiner does that or not. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of business models at play that most people don't know about, that lead them to think that, oh, Bitmain's going out, Bitmain's going under. But that's not going to be the case anytime soon.
Shift with side shift AI. Good job.
Cool. So as a US miner as well, does that mean that you do end up having to spend a lot of time in China, kind of at source, trying to work all that out over there?
So it used to be a lot more the case. I can say as of recently, we opened a Canadian operation maybe 3 months ago. Didn't have to go to China for that. For the new operation we're opening in the States, which is very large, we didn't have to go to China for that.
When you say very large, so people get a sense of this, could the power you use for that operation, could it power like a small town?
Yeah, so the operation that we're building out now, when it's fully completed, it'll be rolled out in 3 stages. And when the 3rd stage is finally complete, it will power more than probably the city of Cincinnati, maybe, like a fairly large size metropolitan place. But it's not going to use more power than like New York City or Boston, right? It'll be, maybe Alameda, California, like a medium-sized, couple million people.
Still not bad though.
Yeah, I mean, we had Emin on the show, who you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know, what is your view on if mining is a waste or not?
So I can say factually that over 80%, and there are numbers to back what I'm saying here, over 80% of the hash rate that is on today is powered by one of 2 things. It's powered by 100% renewables, or it's powered by energy that would otherwise be wasted. And there is some crossover there, meaning that it could be renewables that would also otherwise be wasted. Let me give you an example. A large concentration of mining power is in northern Sweden.
Hydro,
and
right?
It's a lot of hydro, but the thing is, nobody lives in Sweden. And they're not connected to like Norway or Finland to like redistribute power. So all the
It's
dams,
okay, nobody lives there either.
yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like nobody is there to use that power. And so if it's there, that's why you have big data centers there. Like Google has a big one there. Facebook just launched a massive one there. I mean, the EU has a research and development facility in northern Sweden because nobody's there and nobody has a use for that power. So it's cheap, it's green, and it's going to be wasted otherwise. So that kind of story is the same for like Iceland, remote parts of China. Texas is a good example because Texas is not connected to the rest of the U.S. grid. It's its own kind of like sovereign power grid, and it can't resell to the rest of the states, just like Sweden. And I mean, there's tons of places like that. So the reality is 80% of this hash power is either green or being used in a fashion that wouldn't be used otherwise. So, and there's a lot of, I don't know of any large scale miner that would disagree with me.
I as well wanted to touch upon while we had you as well, and we know you've been doing some interesting stuff on the 3D mask front. So taking away from mining a little bit. So yeah, what are you up to with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife's a doctor, and when all this stuff started shaking loose in China, I've got family in China, and they were like telling me all this crazy stuff going on. I was like, holy crap, this is gonna be nuts. Started seeing cases in the U.S., and we live very close to a large hospital in Boston, and the president of that hospital tweeted, I'm surprised that nobody stepped forward to start making 3D printed masks. And I was like, I know how to do that. So we started designing some things and got in touch with the president of that hospital, and they were interested to kind of give them what they call a fit test, to kind of basically put a plastic bag on your head and spray some aerosol in there and see if you can taste the aerosol from within the mask to know if it works. And so me and some of my buddies took a bunch of different prototypes to them, and we were all thinking, there's no way these are going to work up against like a commercial grade, like 3M N95 mask. To our surprise, 2 of our prototypes worked, and everybody was kind of like, oh, okay. Luckily, right now where I live, they just received a very large, what's called a SANRAD. It's It's like gasified hydrogen peroxide to sanitize N95 masks. So they're not going to need them here, but we've sent the designs to New York hospitals, tons of people around the globe. Actually, I got a message from somebody in the Philippines that was like using them at a hospital, which is really cool. Of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm just an engineer that knows how to make cool stuff. And, if it can help somebody, that's great. But yeah, it's every nerd's responsibility right now to kind of help how they can. And that's how I figured I could help. So
if you guys want to keep up with Marshall and everything he's up to, I'm guessing the best way is via Twitter, right? Or is there another way?
yeah, Twitter at OGBTC is the handle.
Thank you so much, Marshall. It's been a pleasure. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Always fun to talk shitcoins with shitcoin.com as usual.